Oh God, I'm gonna die. I gotta get this on camera. No! Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino, and today I'm speaking to Michael Druck, one of the leading casting directors in Texas, and he has been for over a decade. He's worked with a number of notable directors and has even expanded into television, casting leads and supporting roles on shows for Netflix, Hulu, TLC, the Discovery Network, and the list goes on and on. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You know, we have a mutual friend, Sheila Steele, who works with Austin Music Television, and she was telling me about you and just how talented you are and the work that you do in your field. But I wanted to get, first off, how did you get involved in being a casting director and having Michael Druck Casting? How did you get to that, to where you are today?
Yeah, it was quite the journey to get from where I started to there. And Sheila actually played a very important part in that. I'm born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and I was a theater major at a college here, and I wanted to get representation myself, get a talent agent, but I also wanted to work behind the scenes. And there was an internship for a San Antonio agency, no longer exists, but I interned and kind of worked my way on up from non-paid to admin, clerical, and then a spot became open for the actual booking talent agent. And instead of going on to my 4-year program, I stayed on and I became a talent agent at the age of 21. I forget how young I was, but I was very young at the time, and it was a different area in Texas. There was probably half as many casting directors in Texas. There was about half as many agents. And it was, I kind of came in at an interesting time. The technology was changing. We were going from, in person, we're still in person, but faxing lists, those good old days, overnighting headshots. And Sheila worked at Best Casting. And so they were one of the leading casting companies and still are. And Sheila was the one who always grabbed the phone. And Sheila was always the one that was the one who would, be, my ear and try to let me pitch actors to her. And that was kind of rare to have an agent pitch in Texas, but I was really wanting to get my people seen. And she actually saw something in me. She, her and a few others, they would have me help with open calls, casting calls for big directors and for the Robert Rodriguez projects, for the, I think Stopwatch when that was coming through, Kimberly Pierce. So, and that was kind of a rare opportunity to be a talent agent and to get casting experience. It's kind of two very different worlds, but in the same category. And so they didn't see a conflict in that. And I was also acting too. I was going out for auditions. I still wasn't fully, behind the scenes quite yet. And so they would take their chance and they basically mentored me. They were really good at just giving me an opportunity. They saw I was hungry for it, whether I wanted to be an extra on set or help them with sign in or just help get my actors through. And I stayed with the agency for about 4 years. I considered it like my university. And I stuck around in Texas, and I was producing. I produced film festivals, musicals, indie films. I already had gotten to know some great actors, and no desire to really go back into the agency world. I'd already kind of done that. And it was before I got into casting, and then moved to New York for a bit, interned my butt off over there, just tried a different experience. But during that time, I kept getting calls in Texas, whether clients were looking for actors for their projects or actors were looking for career counseling or where to get an agent or what to do. I took a million coffee meetings. And then I moved to Austin in 2012 officially after going there for so many years already. And I got a job on Bryan Poyser's The Bounce Back, or Love and Air Sex, and Bryan Poyser is a big name in Austin too. And I was their extras casting director, so I got to cast well over 400 actors, Austin-based people on 6th Street and a lot of great venues. It's a very Austin-centric film, and kind of got my name on some lists. People started knowing me as like the go-to guy for indies or extras, and then eventually I got my way into commercials, and midway through, I basically, at that point, I was like, oh, I guess I'm starting this casting company here. And so again, that's 2012. We're in 2024. Midway through, I did a sojourn and did a journey to Los Angeles, and I worked for a big casting director, Risa Brayman Garcia. She cast for all the, Oliver Stone projects, Roseanne, Twister, Speed, you name it. She's a huge cat. She started a lot of great casting directors. And I got to work with her on television via Fair, and she was working on SEAL Team at the same time. So that was great. I learned in LA how LA works, and from coming from a Texas market and a regional market, I learned how offers were made. I learned how to wheel and deal with the top, agencies, and to audition big name actors. There's a different way to audition them or to offer them than say, John or Jane Doe in Texas. And then I took that information with me, went back to Texas, and kind of hasn't stopped working. That was about 2018. And then I guess for the past 6 years, I've weathered with everyone, COVID, and then a couple strikes. We're still in the midst of those. So if anyone's been in the business or just gotten back into the business after the past 4 years, I tip my hat off to you. That definitely we're in survival mode, but I'm thankful that the phone keeps ringing, and I have good word of mouth out there. And I guess you could say at the end of the day, I love doing what I do, and I think that's kind of what's kept it going through the ups and downs of value. Actors all the time post how slow or how the industry has changed. Well, it's just as slow, or it changes just as much for us. We're still out there trying to get the next job. We're still out there trying to get work too. So if they're not working, we're not working. If they're prospering, we're prospering. So it's just this whole deal. So you can say now, so I'm still based in Texas, Central Texas, and I cast out of Dallas a lot. I do LA, and then I just expanded into Albuquerque this past year. And because of remote mobile casting, I'm able to also work on some fun location shoots everywhere from North Carolina to Las Vegas to New York. It's just wherever some of my clients go. And I'm also able to work with other casting companies when we're working on larger scale projects. So every day is different. Every project is different. There's the big scale projects that you're with for a couple weeks or a couple months at a time. And then there's we shoot in 2 days. We need options right now, those type of shoots. And those land on my lap quite a bit. So I think that's another thing that sets me apart. I work really fast. I know great actors. I keep them on my database internally and also just off the top of my head. So I'm proud of that I don't just go through the agencies. I also go through my extras files. I go through people I've met. And I like to give new actors an opportunity to read or to be a part of a project. So that's kind of what sets me apart in that sense. That's in a nutshell, that's how I got into casting.
Well, obviously resilience is the thing that stands out to me about your story, is that you have to be resilient to be in the industry that you're in, whether it's acting, casting, entertainment in general. But for you, being able to work and be so versatile, I think that's what I love about what you were talking about, is that you're not just casting, huge films, you're doing indies. And so we were talking a little offline before we started the interview, and, for you, you deal with a lot of different types of directors and people who are making films. What is some of your, your big takeaways and some advice that you would have? Especially, I interview a lot of indie directors and they don't have a lot of money. They're not going to be able to get, these huge actors, but they still want to get people of quality, right? What is your advice to especially indie directors and people in that part of the world, when they're trying to get off the ground, but they also want to have the quality with their actors and their projects? How would you tell them to go about, getting involved with working with a casting director? Or do you have any advice on how they should build themselves up to maybe even get to that point?
Yeah, I do have to, as I call, break in a lot of directors because sometimes I'll get the directors who finally have a budget or finally are starting to hire a casting team, and that's great. And as long as they trust the process and they understand what we do versus what they're supposed to do, for us, it's like we just request as much information as possible. If there's any mood boards or any pitch decks or anything to, just materials that help not just us pitch it to the actors, but to their representatives. And even if it is a big name, especially, you want to know more about the project and, what their inspiration is or what they're hoping to get out of the project. Because I feel like a lot of indie directors, especially now, they want to have those attachment deals where they want, oh, I want, Eva Longoria, or I want Matthew McConaughey or Patricia Arquette to be in my film. All these names that, came from Texas that ended up being huge names because they're hoping they'll attach themselves to their project. And in a way, you have to have that enthusiasm for your project. You have to believe that you have the best project, but also be realistic. If there's no money allocated already, it's a big gamble for this actor to even look at your project. So my advice is to go local as much as possible, and even get like um, you know, a sample video or sizzle reel or something like, or even a teaser trailer, which has, or proof of concept is really huge right now. All local actors. So then now you have a film to be able to pitch to these people. So it's not just them using their imagination. And the bigger the actor, the harder it is to get. And but then you have some great indie friendly people, and I love it when they're able to allow us. We call those ideas lists in casting, where we come up with our own like 20 or so, 15 or so named actors that we can go down and check their availability and see if they would even be interested in. And then we're able to pitch like, oh, you can't get Matthew McConaughey, but Josh Lucas's people might be interested. Stuff like that. I'm just throwing names out there that might be just as enticing, and that's what I think good casting is. We're able to provide these great options, and then I also rely on my team too. My assistants are based out of LA, and they work on big projects themselves, and they work on episodic TV and indie films and with big names. So in a way, I love that because then they have fresh ideas, and then they're able to bring them to me on a Texas-centric project or a project that Michael Druck is casting. So that's great. So when they hire me, they're also hiring my team, and we're able to kind of come up with some quite. So I guess ultimately, I'd say trust the process. Um, Understand that they'll probably hear no more than yes, but that's our job to kind of filter through who would be a realistic option, and just know it's not the end of the world. Like, you're going to, if you just had to cast everyone locally who hasn't had, their breakthrough quite yet, you're still probably going to get a good film and a good project. And you might not just be at that level yet where you kind of like when the project is ready, that's when the names will kind of be ready for you. When you get the budget that you need to, when you've already kind of established yourself as a name, or the right studios attached to you, or the right distribution deals attached to you, then you'll see some good people. I just love when there's a lot of trust with our directors, and they're able to just see how amazing local options really are once they're able to see their words expressed on tape, and they're able to actually see them, basically do the work that they had envisioned. And that's what I love, when there's a lot of trust in that. That's why I love indie film. It's usually just me and a director and maybe a producer. And the studio level just gets more hectic and more people involved, and all that. And that just comes with the territory. But that's why I love, if I had to pick one type of casting, I'd probably say I'd love to do indie films for a long, long time, because again, it's just working with these people who are just have a great vision, and they're able to see, they're able to pick out good actors from a local pool. So yeah.
Creatively, what part of your world do you love to dive in the most? Because I know there's a lot of facets to what you do, and you have your assistants, as you mentioned, but for you on the creative side of things, what is it that, and it's hard to ask this question, like, what's your favorite part of your job, but not so much that, but what is it that you really take away every day that just gives you joy in doing the job that you do?
Yeah, I don't get to do it every day because there's a lot of admin involved. I kind of really consider us like project managers. We're kind of like that now, because there's a lot of, it's all remote still, and we're still getting, tapes and clips, from all over possibly. And there's a lot of logging, a lot of labeling, a lot of back and forth with the production companies and the producers with expectations and what they're wanting. And then keep in mind also in commercially, there's a director's vision, there's a client's vision, there's an ad agency's vision, there's a production. So we're all trying to like work with all those expectations and still come to a decision. I make the joke and the anecdote quite a bit. Nothing makes a client choose or a director choose an actor more so than a deadline. Because once they're like stuck, oh, we have to go shopping for a wardrobe on Friday if they're going to shoot on Monday. That's when we'll get the decision. If we had unlimited time, they would take forever going back and forth. But the part I love is honestly just because we're not in the room as much, if there's like a Zoom type of callback or a chemistry read, and I'm seeing these people one at a time and the director's reactions and them working with the reader and just seeing kind of magic happen online, because it does take extra effort not only to audition well, but also to do it on like an online app, doing it on Zoom or doing it on, Breakdown or one of those programs that we use. But because not only you're not feeling their molecules in the room, you're not feeling their energy in the room. So they have to almost break through even more technically, emotionally, and just really connect with the material. And then when that happens, that's a very beautiful thing. And because I know actors don't get that opportunity that much anymore, and the industry has changed so much. And in a way, it kind of just validates why they're there, and so that's why I like it. So you could say the part I love are like those Zoom callbacks, if you will. So and we don't do that every day, and also mostly because of time. A lot of times we'll cast off of the first round of tape too. It just depends on how much time I have and what they're allocated for in the budget, or if they're able to just see what they want. I think I have to tell actors all the time, no notes isn't bad, or you're not. Sorry about that. I'm doing laundry. Sorry about that. No notes isn't bad, but you never know. There's a million and one things that could sway it in your favor, and there's a million and one reasons why you didn't get it. So you have to just be proud of your work and leave it at the door. But in a way, I just love seeing actors kind of create magic and make it their own, and the director to observe that. And then, to see, oh, well, I could go this way with this role. Oh, I could rewrite it and go here with this role. So I love it when they have a lot of options and, wow, I have something to think about over the weekend. So those are the moments I really like.
Well, I love what you said about the fact that your job is a lot of project management and working with so many different people's opinions and probably managing a lot of expectations as well. I have to ask, you've worked with a lot of different directors, whether that's film, you've done commercial, you've done television. Is there a project that you were involved with or projects that you've been involved with that you're the most proud of, or that you feel, just saying that you had a key piece in the casting to that project? Do you ever look back and kind of reflect on that, or are there some projects that stand out to you along the way?
There's several. I use this director as an example all the time. She's on my resume, as you probably saw, but I adore NIA DACOSTA. And for those that don't know her, we got to work with her on a film called Little Woods. Vicky Boone did the principals. I did the background and supporting. But even then, where I wasn't even casting the leads, Tessa Thompson was in it, Lily James was in it. There was a good, solid cast, but it wasn't so much that. It was how she worked. And Nia went on to work on Candyman, the reboot with Jordan Peele. She did the Marvels with Marvel, and she's going on to do huge things, like kind of say, oh, her moment came. Just to start out with, first of all, directors never call me after the first meeting. I never hear from them. She called me every week just to thank me for the work I was doing. I was like, wow, are you doing this with every department? Are you just calling me to thank me? And, we're rarely invited to even the cast party. We're lucky because we're not on set. People don't know who we are. She would just call me just to hang out with her in the cast and just to chat and talk about how the week went. And very easy to work with. She was very appreciative of whoever showed up, and we'll make it work. And so she was definitely a quality over quantity person. And that's a lot of times why I hesitate doing background casting on a project. I'm not really one to do a project where they just need 500 people. It doesn't matter who. I'm like, well, I'm probably not the casting director for you for that project, because there are other people who do that well. I would rather do more, is this a part of your story, or are these people handpicked by you, or Is this intrinsic to the plot? Those are the shows that we continue to work on and to bid on, because I like to do that type of casting. And she credited every extra, which is rare too. And it was just a beautiful thing, and great things happened to good people. And I actually got to reconnect with her several years later in New York. She happened to be doing a retrospective at one of the, I think, IFC theater, and it was like Rosemary's Baby. And I met up with her, had my words with her, and she's like, "Oh, I'll give send Tessa Thompson your best," and then she's gone off to do amazing things. But that's a project I'm proud to work on, and it wasn't even a huge project for me. It was really like for real, and then from then she kind of just took off from there. But I love when you can work at a director early on in their career, because whether you're able to work with them again or not, you can say that you had like those bragging rights, and you're able to just. And again, actors years later, we did that in 2016. Actors are still commenting and messaging me. They're like, "Wow, we had such a good time on that set." And it wasn't because of the pay, it wasn't because of the role, it was just how they were treated and what they got to do in the film. And to me, that was something I'm very proud of. And there are other directors too. It was fun to actually work with Richard Linklater. It was fun to actually work with BERT Gordon, who was at the time 93 years old and did all those Roger Corman films. And I guess you could say I'm more proud of the work I've done overall with my new directors. I've broken in a lot of people who may be fresh out of film school, or I saw them when they were coordinators on a film set or a PA, and now they're have their own production companies. Those are the types of shows I'm proud of, when I can actually work with a director just one-on-one and just have good opportunities with them, and just have good memories of casting those projects.
So you do a lot of the behind the scenes work, but I have to ask you, as just an individual, do you have a specific kind of genre in film or television that you personally gravitate to, just as a watcher? Is there something that really catches you or that you like?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a TCM junkie. I love all those, or those Criterions, or
Okay.
every time I go to LA quite a bit, and New York, so I'm always at the Arrow or the New Beverly or IFC or Paris Theater. Just anytime, like I'll actually 2 weeks before I go out of town, I'm always like, okay, is there a cool screening going on that I can go to, and stuff like that. The Academy now does stuff, but I do love, I know we were talking about the horror genre. I love classic horror films. I love Elm Street. I love Sleepaway Camp. I love all those retrospectives. But again, as far as TCM, like You Must Remember This, Karina Longworth, I've actually talked to her 3 different times. Anything black and white. I love the old MGM days, and, any type of classic Hollywood biography, I'm really into that. So you'll catch me. That's my catnip. I can talk to people about that for days, for sure.
Now, because I do usually talk to a lot of horror related, indie filmmakers or people involved in that world, have you casted any horror films ever?
Yeah, I got to work on a great film. BERT Gordon, again, he did a film called Secrets of a Psychopath, and I got to work with some great actors, Mark Salmagiletti, from Terminator 3, and then Kari Warher, he was awesome. She had her, she's from the 80s and 90s. She was like the hot chick then, and so that was a fun film. It shot in Lockhart, and we were there for 5 weeks, and I got to actually coordinate. So I was actually casting the background and the local actors, and I was also on the set every day. And I was actually transporting the lead actors. So I was kind of like their liaison. It was kind of fun just to hang out with actors who've been there and done that, and them telling me all their stories from 90210 or the WB or the people they dated. So that's fun. I know Sleepaway Camp's really popular. Felissa Rose, she actually once in a while will send me a nice little comment. And to me, that's really sweet that I'm even on her radar. And I'm a big fan of her work. And gosh, I got to cast the local casting for Satanic Panic. It was more recent that I did that one. That was Rebecca Romaine. That was a Cinestate film, and that was just a fun one. That was so fun to read people, because I got to read every local role. And what's cool about smaller companies like that is they honestly went with a lot of actors that they had worked with in previous films, and that was great. But about pizza delivery driver, and and she's a virgin, and then satanic cult, and they want to sacrifice her before midnight, and it's just like people love reading for those because we're so real in our films now. It's always a message. There's always a something. There's something fun about just, oh wow, a slasher film. I actually get to die in this film, or I actually get chased by the person with the weapon. And I think actors really like that type of stuff because there's an adrenaline with that, and I mean, who doesn't want to read actors for that? Like, to me, that's a lot of fun. So horror genre is kind of rare for me. Like sometimes I'll get some of those indies, but they're a lot of fun. I'll just say that. And there's never a lack of options. People will come out of the woodwork literally to audition for a horror film, and that's a lot of fun for me too in that case.
Now, you've been here. I mean, you grew up in San Antonio, as you mentioned. You know the film industry in Texas, specifically Central Texas. I know after COVID, there's been, ups and downs, and there always is in entertainment. But what would you describe the climate like when it comes to your world in casting and filming? Just down the road in San Marcos, there, you've heard about that huge studio that they're building. I mean, they film films in Bastrop and all these different places. But then you also heard the other where people were leaving Texas to go to other places. Like, I think it was Fear the Walking Dead used to shoot here, then they left for better tax incentives or whatever. I don't know the whole story. But the point is, you kind of hear two different things sometimes. It's like, oh, it's great, or oh, it's not as great. You being in the industry and kind of in your part of the world, how would you describe the climate here in Central Texas, and what do you foresee in the future when it comes to what you're doing and just filming and, that world in general here?
Yeah, it's hard right now. Just being point blank, I think thank goodness for our commercials. Texas has always been a thriving market to shoot advertisements, both union and non-union. But I also think the non-union commercials are keeping us all afloat right now. And so thankfully for that. And I hear the actors that say, oh, I really want to audition for film or TV. But I think a lot of misinformed people aren't looking at the big picture. I think you need to read Deadline. You need to read Variety. You need to go coast to coast. So I'm thankful for having my tentacles in each market and having my colleagues in each market, because I was literally texting a good friend who's a big agent in LA. And I was like, just checking in with her, seeing how she's doing. Her daughter's an actor too. And then I was like, how are you? And she's like, slow. So I'm like, well, if you're telling me it's slow in LA, first of all, I'm not taking it personally that my phone isn't ringing as much, or my emails aren't going that much. And I teach a little bit too. I try to teach when I can. I'll try to teach mostly audition workouts or things to where I can give adjustments to actors. I can always tell when it's slower there because, number one, if there's not as much work going on, I don't expect a lot of people to sign up for an acting class. So that's not why I'm doing those. But I like to actually get the actors in front of me and just like to talk to them, and if anything, to put confidence back in them, because they're just at home sending their tapes, and then they're like, I didn't hear anything. And they may or may not have an agent who, because it's not their job to coddle them or to check in with them daily. They usually just send you the auditions and call it a day. And that's nice when your agent's a little more communicative with you. But anytime, I think when they hear it from casting, that helps them. Texas is a mixed bag. Incentives, are pretty high right now, but I think it goes back to the studio level. The studios knew early on that all these strikes were imminent, so they purposely didn't release a lot of projects or greenlight a lot of projects, and that affected us because if you're only releasing 20 projects nationwide or even internationally, we're only going to get a handful of those. And I think everyone expected when the SAG writer strike was over, the floodgates would open. Well, Hollywood's also learned you don't need to make 100 pilots a year in order to award 0.5 of them. So they've kind of changed the model, and I think we're going to continue to change and adapt. And yes, AI and all that other stuff too. There's the tangibles and the intangibles. What's in our control? What's not in our control? What can you control doing? And I have a good agent friend who reminds me of this too when I'm being hard on myself about, well, why is so and so getting the film calls and not me, or why is so and so getting that? He's like, check your boxes. Are you checking all your boxes? Is your website up to date? Are you on the directories? When's the last time you took a director meeting? When's the last time you reached out to your previous client? And then also just be patient. And it's hard to tell people that it's going to be slow. As far as the San Marcos studio, great. I think that studios are good at self-promotion and great. They need to. But they're not the ones who bring in the work. They house the work. But we also need, it's like that chicken and the egg. Well, you need places to house them. Like, for example, AFS, they do a lot of great things, but they haven't expanded in years, So if one show's in there like Walker, they're going to take over the whole studio lot and they don't have room to rent out. But then you got like ATX Studios and a few others. I still live in San Antonio right now, and I love it because it's just an hour away, but a world away. But I'm usually in Austin weekly, so I'm able to like see what's going on. And then you got Dallas too. You can't discount them. I think what's really going to be a good gauge will be after this year, but also we're just going to keep having to just gauge each moment as it goes. New Mexico's great. I know they've even slowed down, but they have so much TV and so much film. It's because they have a great incentive. So I'm curious to see what Texas does with its next session. I hope that they don't say, well, we gave you money and now y'all didn't do anything with it, but they don't realize it's Hollywood. Well, they don't care. So I'm hoping that maybe the next session there's still more money appropriated, and then on a normal year, a non-strike year, we're able to gauge how much work was able to come into Texas realistically. But I think it'll always be, we'll have a couple shows, we'll have a couple films going on at a time, and we'll have a lot of commercial. And I think that's just how Texas is going to be. I think it's going to continue to get more film. I'm curious to see if more TV does happen. Taylor Sheridan can't just be the only one making TV here. And but more power to him. Yeah, I kind of try to keep out of all the TV stuff because I'm really, although I have worked in TV a little, I think indie film and commercial is going to continue to be my niche as long as they continue to cast. Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you at one point acted. Is that something that you still do, or would ever want to do? Or
thank you for asking that question, because I do act. I got back into it during COVID. One of my good agents, friends, Lily Bankston, she hit me up and said, we went way back to like theater days together, and I was basically challenged, like, I wish you were still acting. I said, who says I'm not? I'm just kidding. But really, I kind of took that out. COVID, I was taking acting classes again because, I got to cast in acting studios before in LA, and I love that. And it was really just to connect with actors and to kind of challenge myself because, like, you've been off the ride for 15 years now. Where are you at now? Are you any good? Like, how are you? Or did have casting as your day job, did that help you? So I just did it as a challenge to myself, and who knew my type was interesting in a way. Like, I was like, oh, you're weird, you're a character, you're a big guy, you're kind of, you fit so many different boxes. I'm not Joe Everybody, which is kind of fun. And I have my agents, and I keep it separate. So I'm glad you asked that because I'm very open about it now. When I got back into it, I was very quiet about it, and I found this like society of casting people who act on the down low. And it's like, I think what happens is people think right away, oh, you just cast yourself in your opponent. First of all, I can't. Second of all, I would never put myself in a position to be like, hey, I know you hired me to do your casting. I think I would be perfect for this role. First of all, I wouldn't be perfect for that role. I'm a very specific type. But I love my checks and balances of my reps submitting me for what they think is right, mostly outside the Texas market. I will go out for my commercials and my stuff here. Totally respect if a casting person says, nope, I'm not bringing him in. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I got into some fun rooms this year. I got to audition for Grey's Anatomy as a guest star. I had an in-person callback with Ethan Coen on his last film. So that was fun. I got to fly to Albuquerque and have my 5 minutes with him. And so it's been a fun progression the past 3 years of like, okay, I got my rep. I'm back in classes. I got my headshot. And what I love is being able to share this with actors to be like, well, I got back onto the ride a few years ago. This is kind of what's been working for me. This is what hasn't. Please take or, share whatever you want with that. But I think in a way, I tell them I'm in it with you. It's 11 p.m. and I'm self-taping. I've worked a 12-hour day too, and I'm having to get the audition notice and have to be accountable and make sure I'm doing what I need to do. I'm taking classes. I'm paying out of pocket for those fees. I'm having to take the flight for the callback that I may or may not get. So, but that's what I want to do in a way. So I'm just going to keep challenging myself and do that. Maybe one day I'll make my agent some money, hopefully. I even teach them the art of, hey, make sure that if you're not booking, send your agent that Starbucks card every so often, or hey, thank you for repping me. I know you're not making money off me, but I like that because I'm able to see, how busy or how slow we are too, based on the auditions I'm getting to, and it's great. It's also helped me like communicate with the actors because I'm thinking, well, these are the self-taping instructions I'm putting out. Would I be able to understand that? Would I be able to turn that around in 24 hours? Would I be able to make? So I try. It's really helped give me a checks and balances, and it's also helped me respect the craft even more so. So that's great. And I like, I do go to the casting awards every year. I'm a proud member of the CSA. You see that in my little name. I do go to the RTOs every year in LA, and it's a great time of year to reconnect. Or you see people who cast in maybe neighboring markets. Like I see people from Oklahoma and New Mexico. We all have our cocktails and we're congratulating each other on surviving yet another year. And I have met a few who do that, and I pull them aside, and I'm like, "Hey, I act too. Okay, great. Thank you for bringing me in." So I think there's a little bit of camaraderie. I think that you really want to do this, okay, and then I'm learning tricks of how to get actors in front of the decision makers. For example, I'll send my clips to associate casting directors, not the big casting director, but the ones in the room. So, and then they're the ones who are like, "Oh, you said you act, right? Well, I got something for you." I mean, it's just a read. I'm just another person reading, just like all the other 200 people are. But to me, that helps. So, because actors ask me all the time, should I send materials directly to casting? I'm like, why not? Are you proud of it? Send it to them. It's their job to bring in new faces and to bring in the next person or to bring in just cool options. And I can honestly say they probably bring me in when they're casting a wider net because I'm still non-union and I'm still haven't booked anything big yet. But I'm very proud of or just grateful for I got to read for And Just Like That, Kathy Bates film. I mean, I got to read for Nickelodeon. And again, and I use that again to actors to tell them, I don't have a huge demo reel. I don't have the most expensive ring light. I don't have, but what I am doing is I'm putting work that I'm proud of, and and I have my coaches that I like to work with, and ultimately I'm having fun. And I think you got to ask yourself all those questions. So, and so I'm not putting myself in the same league as a lot of them, but what I'm trying to say is I understand. I think if anything, because I think we have to fight the facade that we don't care for them, or we're dismissing their audition, or we don't even watch all of them. It is hard to watch all of them, but we do our best, and it only behooves us to present you as an option if we've invited you. If we've taken the time to bring you in, then we obviously think there's something to you. And I think that's ultimately, we say this all the time, even when I'm in LA with my casting colleagues, is I wish actors knew how much of a cheerleader we were for them. We want them to win so much. We want them to do good. And I guess that's probably why I stay in this industry. There's a little part of us that wants to do something good out there in the world. And if what we can do is help an artist believe in themselves and, possibly making a living at it on the side, that's great. But I think ultimately, even the most gruffest exterior person with the big glasses and the frown, they want you to do good. And I know y'all don't see that, but I'm hoping if an actor is watching that, they know that we're just cheering for them and we want the best for them. So, but yeah, I do act, and I'm proud to cast. And I make the joke that it's kind of like my bartending job. I say that it's like, instead of slinging drinks, I sling actors for a living. So that's how I bring it up when that comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
And so far it hasn't been a big conflict, and I'm happy to have a seat at the table, and to hopefully my reps will keep me signed for another year or two.
I love that because, like you said, I think what's so important in what you're doing, like being part of that underground world of casting directors that act, is that it does give you a relatability that others might not have with an actor, because they because you're going through the same, as you said, you're going through the same motions that they are. And people, you can say, oh, I understand how you feel, but you really don't if you're not doing exactly what they're doing. And that's a very vulnerable position to be in, being an actor and putting everything out there like that. And, you get rejected, or you get no's more than yes. So I think that I love that you're able to share that with them. And I would imagine that also helps put them at ease and gives them, would make them want to work with someone like you because you have that sensibility that some other casting director might not necessarily have. So I think that's great.
I asked an actor a long time ago because I was trying to brand myself. I hate doing my own website because in a way you're bragging about yourself, and you're like, well, what sets me? I remember I was sitting in front of like 10 actors at that moment. Where I maybe just got done teaching a class or something. I said, guys, what sets me apart when you get an audition from Michael Druck? Like, what do you think of? They go, and I saw like the wheels turning, and one person just said, "Can I just say something like yeah?" She goes, "You're one of us," and I'm like, "Oh," like, that meant a lot to me. I know it was a very simple. She goes, "You're just one of us," like, and I love that, and I'm like, I like that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I didn't put that on my website. Oh, I'm one of them, but it just gave me a little more context for how they really feel because I do care about I have my committee of actors and you know who you are that slide into my DMs at night and vice versa, and I'm able to like either show them my clips or ask them how their acting's going or how's it going with their agent, all that fun stuff because I'm very honest and I try to be real with people like when they're like, well, which agents do you refer and why, and then and it's not just the one. There's quite a few that I do because I'm also telling them well, who submits to my stuff and who gets back to me pretty quickly and who does this. But I'm also adding a lot of humanity to it too. And humility, where I'm just like, or just business sense. I'm like, well, if you're having trouble with your rep, why don't you just email them and ask for a 10-minute Zoom or are you doing everything you need to be doing? Because remember, I told you I started out as one. So I would, as an agent, so I would totally understand when an actor would say, "Oh, my agent doesn't do anything for me." I'm like, "Where are my headshots? Why have you turned down the last 5 auditions?" And so it's not about like what he said, she said. It's just more about again going back to what I was saying earlier about checking their boxes. Are you doing everything you can do? Okay, that's all you can really do right now. And I will just go on and say, this is a tough industry. It's a freaking tough industry. In fact, one of my best friends who's also an agent we have dinner about every 2 weeks. And I'm glad that, and I have my 10-minute actor talk with her in our like 2 hour dinner. It's just because I don't want her to think I'm only having dinner with her as an actor. I just want her to, we're just friends. But when I do have that chat with her, I'll be like, God, it's like almost like winning the lottery, isn't it? Like to make a living at acting and to like land your TV show and everything has to line up just right. But you're not going to get there unless you're ready, and then there's also actors in this market who book all the time and we know who they are but you hear the other side of the coin when actors are like, how come so and so always gets all the jobs? They go, well, they show up, they're pleasant, they self-submit, they're just great to work with, and they're darn good at what they do. Like, are you doing all those things, or are you like turning down the role because it's not the lead, or you're not even going to read for it, or you don't even send me the tape on time, or I can tell you're not enjoying doing what you're doing. It's just, but it goes back. A good acting coach told me this. I love training with lots of different people. Is before we tape, he's always like, "Why are you here today?" And I'm just like, "Whoa, that's pretty deep." And it's centering things like that that I think really help. And there's a lot of I think we've been more conscious since COVID about our mental health and checking in with each other and making sure, because again, life isn't easy. The industry isn't easy. We have our ups and downs. We have our financial woes. We have our family woes. This industry has taught me a lot about um, not assuming you know what the other person's going through. I like that saying, we might be all in the same waters, but we're not in the same boat. And just understanding that what Jane or John Doe is going through today, you might not know exactly when you saw their work that day. So we try to take that into consideration too. Maybe they just had an off day, and maybe okay, I'm going to bring you in next time, and we're going to see what you do next time. Or you were on vacation, but you still wanted to send me what you had with your cell phone and no lighting, or you do what you got to do. And but yeah, I just at the end of the day, I think that we're all being aware of those situations. And I think there's this strive for perfection in our industry, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I love when people are just imperfect. In fact, I say a lot to actors, please mess it up. Life is messy, breakups are messy, raising families is messy, getting through life is messy. Why doesn't your work show that mess? Like, just show it. I think that's great. When you show your flaws, right? Everyone wants to be porcelain and not show their age. And I'm like, let that age show, let your roles show, let your, let your true self be seen. And I think ultimately that's what people want to see is just your own authentic self and your interpretation of each role. Mm-hmm.
So you've been doing this for a long time. Where do you see, what would you like to continue to accomplish? Or is there something that you haven't yet done that you're itching to do, whether it be with your casting, with Michael Druck Casting, or, we talked about acting, but is there something that you've yet to accomplish, or do you just want to continue to build on what you've already done?
I need to write and produce more. I produced a lot when I was younger out of naivete. I was really good at working with directors and just making something happen. And when you're young and naive, you just do things. You don't think about the consequences or, oh, we don't have any money. Let's just do it. And when you're older, you enter things with a little more caution. So I have a couple pet projects I want to do, some that I've pitched to some really producers that I've recommended or just work really well. And they're like, you need to do that. Just do it. Just do it. And I'm like, okay. So trying to get those projects underway. Um, we'll see. Maybe one day I will book Grey's Anatomy. No, I'm just kidding. We'll see. There'll be the right role when it comes along. But again, that's part of the reason why I want to write and produce too. Is just I love it when you're able to just write something from the heart and just able to just show more of your authentic self. And I probably would like to try my hand at directing a little bit. I don't know if it's for me or not. I respect directors. I don't know but just even try it out would be great. Casting wise, it'd be fun to do a little more. Like if we can get a pilot or something, that would be a lot of fun. But we'll see. I said I would give it at least another 10 years in casting. I'd say, I'm 40. Let's see what happens when I hit 50. I've been really enjoying teaching. I love working with actors. I kind of like zone out and I get into this like little trance of just working with them and being in the moment with them. So maybe more at the university level. I like to do, master classes too. So we'll see what happens with that. I think in that case, there's a lot of open opportunity for that. Because at the end of the day, we do have a lot of experience and we do have a lot of, we come from and going back to what I was saying earlier about like why it's a little hard for us to get into acting. Our job is very of service to someone else's vision. Do you see a lot of actor writers, actor directors, actor producers? That's very common. With casting, it's like we're there to make someone else's vision come true. It's very rare that we're able to make it our own. I mean, yeah, we're able to suggest people, we're able to really insist on certain people, but at the end of the day, we have no power over who gets selected. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm probably itching more towards the creative arts where we have more our voice and more our stamp. And then working in the casting industry too. I know in the CSA we're trying more diversity initiatives and more just initiatives in general. I'll be honest too, I'd love to get a seat at the table for our extras casting directors. I've been talking to them a lot, and I feel like background casting doesn't get the applause that it deserves. In fact, even in the casting society itself, I love my people there. For a while, commercials and extras casting was not, counted as credits. And I was like, what? Someone's got to cast that. Now commercials are allowed, but extras casting doesn't have a seat at the table. So that's something I'm trying to work to give them a little more of a spotlight, a little more of a voice too. And, because I think a lot of times, extras, background actors feel less than, well, background casting directors actually get treated that way as well too. So I'm trying to work on that too in the next couple of years. So there's a lot of things I want to work on: teaching, directing, producing, writing.
And when you mention teaching, are you teaching like acting? Tell me about what you teach.
Yeah, so I make sure to say I'm not here to teach you how to act, and I'm not here to teach you a technique. I'm not that type of coach. I like helping actors work with what's already working, because I think a lot of actors think they're doing everything wrong. They could be doing a lot of things right. Or I was told theater acting and film acting is not the same. I'm sure there's a lot I can pull from their theater. So in a way, I feel like all actors have their own little toolbox. Either they have too many tools in their box, or they're overtrained and given too many opinions, or maybe a certain opinion, or they're don't have anything to work with. Or I get a lot of actors who take my classes who came into this later in life, like a lot of that is happening. Hey, I'm in my 50s, or hey, I'm in my 40s. I want this to happen. And I'm like, great. Well, you're in the right place. Let's do it. So, they get a little self-conscious too, because I think a part of it is they feel like people are watching them. So, but what I really excel at is helping people work with what they already have and give them the confidence to make the choices themselves. Because I always say that you're making the choice at home. You're in your kitchen or your living room and you're taping yourself. I'm here to make sure that you feel confident in the choices that you're making. So that's why I say, yeah, I do audition workups. I try to give them a lot of different perspectives from other casting professionals or just other professionals in general. So a lot of times they're going to be hearing the same thing. And so for some reason, I could tell them to do something 100 times, someone else could, but maybe that third person might be, oh, okay, you're telling me to trust myself, trust my instincts, be proud of my work, all those things that we always say. But yeah, I try to come up with different methods. For example, like if someone's new, I try to have them rewrite their lines in like how they would say it, especially because I think actors when they're starting out especially adult actors who are beginners, they they focus so much on line memorization that I think it should be other stuff they should focus on. Like, why are you here? What's going on in the story? Well, what would you say in this situation? How would you handle it? Versus, wait. I'm trying to get the lines down first. So I try to get them to put the script down. I try to get them to connect with readers. To just be more of show that interesting person that you already are. And then just now let's work on the words. So I think a lot of it is trying to get them to not put the cart before the horse. And then also to kind of fill them up a little bit and make them feel good about themselves. And, because a lot of times they'll come in deflated with me. And then I feel like I want them to leave the room feeling really good about themselves because they should feel good about themselves. And so I'm kind of a life coach, and that's I'm there to kind of make sure that they are they can be in a safe zone and not feel judged and just do great work because I know they can do great work. All of us can do great work, but we got to get through a lot of barriers in order to do it. Some people are better at it than others. And but putting their own mark on something, I want them to feel proud of what they do. I was told by an actor who takes some of my classes, he goes, "You always leave us with a big plate of leftovers." I love that. I'm like, great. That's a very like kind of maternal way of putting it, or paternal way of putting it. Like, I want them. It's not so much the work they're doing with me; it's what they come home with and what they're able to like. Okay, now I have something to work with, and I'm able to adjust myself.
I also, reading on your website here, I know that you mentioned earlier you're a proud member of the Casting Society of America. You volunteer, though, for many programs geared towards diverse casting initiatives and for the LGBTQIA plus community, which has always been important, but there's obviously a lot more discussion around that within the last, 5 to 10 years even. I mean, we've seen it more in casting, but now you have like non-binary characters, you have trans characters, you have more of that happening now than I've seen. Like I'm 40, God, I'm 48. And so like, I think back to my youth, back when anything that had to do with LGBTQIA plus was so controversial. I mean, the kiss on Roseanne, Ellen coming out. I mean,
I remember all that. Oh yeah.
all those things were made headline news. They were huge. And while we are in a different place, there's obviously still work that needs to be done, but I appreciate that you're out there advocating for that. And do you feel like we have come, I don't want to say a long way, but we are getting to a better place than we've been when it comes to that?
Definitely. 10 years ago, how many trans actors could you name? There weren't that many. Now it's like now we have like agencies have like divisions of their trans, non-binary, all that. I see both sides of the coin in the sense of I love diverse casting. I like the place of it, but I also go back to the best acting wins the room or wins the day. And this usually gets me a little like I don't know. I try not to engage on social media or read the comments too much. I'm already again. I told you I'm 40. I'm like I don't got time for that. I don't want to deal with that. But just as important as it is to say, well, I think, a gay actor, LGBT actor should play a LGBT role. True. Now I'm talking to you as an actor. Am I only confined to gay and LGBT roles? Or should I be able to read for a hetero role? Or should it not matter? So I play both sides of those coins to where absolutely. So I think what's important is that we keep making sure that we're seeing the actors that fit the criteria that it's being written for, of course, as an option and as a strong option. I think, we got to stop caving to social media bullying and like, who are these people when they're saying, how dare you cast it? Well, who are you? Judy in Idaho. Like, did you have anything to do with this film? In fact, I have to confide with my directors and build them up and say, this is your project. This is your money. You cast who you want to do. Who is the best person to fit your role? And I'm not trying to tell them to go with the white option or go with the non-LGBT. I'm trying to say who did the best job? Who are you going to work with for 12 hours a day until you're wrapped to get to be this character? So yeah, I think again, what's most important is that we have visibility for these people, and that's part of what the CSA does. Sometimes I'm very proud of what they do, and I've been on a lot of their open calls. They'll have like almost like databases where we audition people. I actually got to read myself I had to ask that question. There was a Latinx, Latino cross country or international showcase. So we got to send in our tapes, and then we brought back like 100 of them, and we gave our notes, and now we have a database of who those people are. And we did that with Asian American actors or Asian actors, and we did that with LGBT. I think we're doing that with our Jewish community. We're trying to do anyone who's a minority, in particular. So we have people because again, what I love about the casting site, it's a nice, safe area for us to be like, hey, we're casting people with disabilities. Have y'all read anyone who's great that fits this? And but at the end of the day, like when we did episodic TV, they might go with Alan Alda, who's not in the wheelchair, but because he's Alan Alda and he has this huge career. Do you have Alan Alda's experience? Okay, that's why they went with that person. But it'd be great if we can audition that person who's up. And I've done many PSAs, many projects. It's kind of common in Texas. People in wheelchairs, pregnant women, people who are nursing. I've had to cast people with alopecia, liver transplant. See, I do a lot of real people casting. I'm very proud of that too, because it's not easy to find HVAC owners who are mom and pop and live in Georgia and love to eat barbecue. Okay. So, and they just expect the magic wand to happen, but in a way you'd start to just become a real big fan of just interviewing everyday people. And to me, that's also kind of like what it's like working with actors in a way. They are just people every day.
Well, we've had such a good conversation. Before we go, I have to say, like, if people are interested in working with you or just finding you, where can they find you online? Where can they reach out to you? If they want to work with you, where can they contact you?
Yeah, finally have my website up after 12 years. So you found it. So great. So that's cool. It's just michaeldruck.com, no www. I'm on all the socials, most of them. Instagram, I do a lot of Instagram at Michael Druck Casting. Facebook, I have my Michael Druck Casting still. My email is very simple, michaeldruckcasting@gmail.com.